I am so happy to be up here, and there's just a few things I want to get out of the way really quick, and honestly, they're kind of my favorite parts of the service, and I just want to honor, first of all, this church. I want to honor my parents, Pastors Troy and Penny Maxwell. Let's give them a hand for sure. This is such a big honor for me, and I just love this opportunity and love being able to hang out with the Freedom House family today, getting to hang out with you on the Saturday night services. Worship was amazing today. Can we give it up for Javen Chavez for helping us out with worship today? I don't know where he is, but thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. He is definitely one of our good friends here at Freedom House. Well, my name is Colby Maxwell, and I carry a couple different things here at the church, and one of my main things that I do is I'm involved with our student ministries, and that basically involves anything from 5th grade all the way up until 25 years old, which is a rather large gap. So some of the few things that I love to get to do with these students, and a lot of them are my age, is we get to do some pretty amazing things. We get to go through life together. And I know for me personally, one of the most life-changing things I ever did was I got purpose in my life. I got purpose in my life. And if you don't know your purpose in life, or maybe you're a teenager, or you're somewhere in that age gap, or maybe you're an adult and you would like some direction in that kind of area, we have this amazing thing called Freedom House College. And Freedom House College, if you saw those 3 guys up there, 2 of them will be going, 1 of them is going to Freedom House College. Freedom House College is an amazing opportunity for anyone who wants to get some more purpose back into their life, anyone who wants to learn more, anybody who wants some real mentorship here at the church, and just a ton of different varieties of ways. Freedom House College, I'm a part of it. I'm a part of Freedom House College, and I seriously, I've been to a couple of colleges. I traveled a lot, and let me tell you, there is no place like home, and I say that with as little bias as I can. Another thing that's really that's cool that's happening is tomorrow we are having our Connect party. Let's give our first-time guests a round of applause really quick. If maybe you're new at the church, or maybe it's your first time checking us out, or maybe you just haven't connected to the church fully, or you're just trying to figure out who we are as Freedom House, the Connect Party is going to be your way to do that. Tomorrow evening, or tomorrow afternoon at 10:30, the Connect Party starts, and it's going to be right across the hall over here in that glass-looking sort of room. It's kind of cool looking. And that is our Connect Lounge. If you want to get connected in any way, I really urge you. There is free food. There's no reason not to. I'll be there. I won't be doing anything but eating, but I'll be there, and we'll be having a really good time. So as I was saying earlier, my name is Colby Maxwell, and I am from 5th grade all the way up to 25 years old, and as you can probably imagine, that's a large age gap, you know? And it's kind of fun. I'm in our JV classroom with his 5th and 6th grade. I'm involved with our vertical youth program, which is going to be 7th to 12th grade. And I'm also involved with our new program, which is Movement, which is 18 to 25 years old. So if you have any questions about any of those departments or any of those teams, we would seriously love for you to come hang out with us. And we have a great time. And I'm lying here. I'm not telling you anything from the platform. Or I'm telling you the truth, excuse me. That's what happens when you try to make a joke about God, is it doesn't turn out well. This series, Evergreen, that we're in, I'm really excited to talk about it today, and I have a story I want to share with you. You guys some of you may be a little closer to this than others. Your first day of school, you know what I'm talking about? And you know your first day of school is coming up, and there's just that hype about it. There's something special coming up soon. And, you know, this happened to me. Again, I'm 19 years old, so I am in that gap where I'm kind of helping out. So I'm really not too far away from my elementary school, my high school, and my middle school days. And let's go ahead and put that picture up there right now. That is me. I don't remember how old I am right there. Honestly, I can't believe that's preschool. I'm preschool right there. And let me tell you, when your first day of school is coming up, you are looking fresh. Go ahead and look at your neighbor right now, compliment them in some way. Be like, hey, your kicks are fresh. You got a fresh haircut. Your jacket is fresh. For you who maybe have kids, your students, you can look at them and say, maybe I'm going to post this on Instagram later, make them feel really uncomfortable about it. I know this new term now, son, fresh. That's how you make your kids uncomfortable, is you start talking about the new terms you've learned and how you're going to use them. Fresh. what does that really mean? We just had Thanksgiving, and I love Thanksgiving. One of the traditions that we have at Thanksgiving is the day after, on that Friday, we go out as a Maxwell family, and we all pile into the SUV, and we go pick out our Christmas tree. And everybody knows that the bigger your Christmas tree, the more you love Jesus. And so we're looking for a Christmas tree, and we're trying to find the biggest one just to honor God. That's how we do it here. And all of a sudden, we see this tree, and we know that this is the Christmas tree for us. So they go to put it through that little compactor where it puts the net on it, and we loved God so much it wouldn't even fit through that compactor. So what we did is we strapped it right on top of the SUV, wrapped it around that bad boy, and we had 2 people holding it from the inside of the car. It was only a couple miles, it was fine. And we brought it back to the house, and we put it up inside, and it was just awesome. It was standing there in all of its glory. This thing is huge. We have an open forum in the house, so it was really fun to see. It was awesome. And so me, my dad, and my friend, we go out into the garage. We get a little workout in. We just had Thanksgiving dinner, so we got to make ourselves feel like we're worthless or worth something somehow. So we go out into. We don't want to make ourselves feel like we're worthless. We just did that yesterday at Thanksgiving. That like you're sitting there in your bed at night, and you're like, oh, why did I do that? We're working it off the next day, that Friday, in the garage, and all of a sudden we hear boom, and my sister Cal busts through the door, and she goes, guys, the Christmas tree is falling over. And so me and my dad, we run into the house, and we're obviously freaking out because this thing is huge, and the picture in my mind is my mom's underneath the Christmas tree with an ornament in her hands, and I'm like, oh no, my mom and the Christmas tree, and nothing's going right, and we're just trying to work out, and I'm already feel terrible, and I run inside, and I walk into our room, and there's 2 things that I notice. The first is my mom standing there like this. Obviously, she's not very happy. And the second thing that I notice is the freshness that comes from this Christmas tree when I walk into the room. Can I tell you today that there's an aroma that you have about you when you're evergreen? There's an aroma that you have about you that provides life. There's an aroma that you have about you when you walk into a room. Something's just a little bit different. Something's just a little bit new. And one of the cool things about Christmas trees is they're evergreen. They're evergreen. And what evergreen means is that they don't die no matter the season. They never wilt. They are always green, no matter the circumstances in life. No matter what is happening in our life, we can stay evergreen. We can provide that freshness. We can provide that aroma to anyone who comes in proximity to us. You see, God has intended us to be evergreen. God's intention from the very beginning was for us to live eternal and everlasting lives. God never intended death to be a part of human nature. However long you like to think that the earth was created, God created us. God in the very beginning, he was there, and the first thing he did was he created the heavens and the earth, and he said, it was good. Say, it was good. Then he created the plants. Say, it was good. Then he created the animals, and say it was good. Then he created man and woman. If you're married in here, look at your husband or wife and say it was very good. That's what God said after he finished man and woman. He said it was very good. You see, we were once evergreen. We were once never dying and forever living in a garden of Eden that was forever living and never dying. God's original intention for us was to be evergreen. But something happened, something changed, something entered into humanity and into that garden that forever changed the trajectory of humans. That thing that entered into our lives and kind of diverted us from the course of evergreenness is sin. Sin entered into our lives. What happened was Adam and Eve were the man and the woman who God created in the garden. And Eve was walking around one day, and she was, obviously she was getting stuff for her basket. She was just walking around, and they were having a great time, and she walks up to this tree, and there's one tree that God said, there's only one stipulation. God said, hey, could you just not eat from this tree? You have literally everything else in this entire garden. Please, just not this one tree. And the reason God did that is because he wanted us to love him. And can I tell you today that there is no love without a choice? We couldn't love God unless there was a choice involved. So this tree that was here was our choice. Eve was tempted by the serpent, who was the enemy, Satan, the devil. The serpent tells her this lie that if you eat of this tree, you will be like God. You see, that was a huge lie to tell them, because at this moment they were already just like God. They were forever living. They were evergreen. They were eternal. he lied to them by almost telling them the truth. And what Eve did is she took of the fruit and she ate it, and all of a sudden our evergreen lives were ended. And here you and I are today. As a result of the sin that entered into our lives, into our lineage, however long ago, we are no longer evergreen. Matthew 26 says this, when I'm reading out of the NIV version for you guys who would like to follow along. It says this: Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." Going a little farther, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." You see, what has happened here is that Jesus walked into this garden with his disciples. Jesus walks into this garden. He has his 12 disciples with him, actually 11 at the time, because Judas had gone to betray him. And he walks into this garden, and he is about to face the toughest thing he has ever faced in his entire life. Jesus knows that it's a Thursday right now. Jesus knows that the next day, on that Friday, he will be killed. It's a terrible thing to weigh on your mind, I'm sure. One that I couldn't even imagine, knowing that I'm going to die tomorrow and take the sins of the world on my back. He's in so much distress that his humanity shows quite a bit here. We can't forget that Jesus was 100% God, 100% man, 200% Jesus. And he walks into this place and he is fully showing that humanness. He is literally dripping in sweat. The Bible says in some translations that he was sweating drops of blood. And he says, look, God, if you can take this away from me, please do it, because I do not want to go through it. Nevertheless, something changed that allowed Jesus to go through with that Friday. Something changed from Thursday to Friday that Jesus said, I'm going to go ahead and go through with this. Do you know what that thing was? It was hope. It was hope. And it may not be in the way you're thinking. Jesus died and went through what he went through because he hoped someday me and you might have a chance to live with him evergreen once more. It's amazing. It's simply amazing. You see, I heard a preacher one time say, Jesus didn't die for an absolute. He died for your maybe. Jesus was hoping that maybe this guy sitting right on the front row today, maybe he'll make a decision for me. I'm going to go through it for this guy. I have hope that someone in Freedom House Church 2016, December 3rd, is going to make a decision for Jesus. I have hope in that. And that hope is what allowed Jesus to go past his humanity and completely remove the sin that was once in our lives, allowing us as human beings to once again live evergreen. You see, what had happened here was 4,000, 6,000 years ago, the garden where man fell was about to be redeemed in the garden where the Son of Man was going to rise again. Can I tell you today that from garden to garden, Jesus' hope in us is what allows us to enter into relationship with him. From garden to garden. Can I get an amen in here? From garden to garden. That's the power of hope. That's the power of hope. Jesus went through hell because he hoped someday you and I might know him. Jesus knew what was going to happen on that Thursday. He knew what was going to happen the next day on Friday. And when man fell in the garden, the journey of hope began. You can trace it, the scarlet thread, from Adam and Eve all the way to the time of Jesus, all the way to me and you sitting here today. The journey of hope, the story of hope is interwoven through every single book in the Bible. Every single encounter, there's the interwoven thread of hope, uniting us from the garden from then to the garden in the middle to where we are now, where we're able to live finally in eternity evergreen with God. The garden once represented the fall of man and now represents salvation through the rise of the Son of Man. See, Jesus got through this situation because of the hope he had in us. Hebrews 6:13, reading out of the NIV again, says this. When God made his promise to Abraham, since there was no one greater for him to swear by, let's pause. Only God can say, I swear to God, we can't say that. Saying, I will surely bless you and give you many descendants. And so after waiting patiently, Abraham received what was promised. verses 19 says this, "We have this hope as an anchor for the soul. Firm and secure, it enters the inner sanctuary behind the curtain where our forerunner, Jesus, has entered on our behalf." You see, Abraham had a purpose for his life, and his purpose came through the promise. Can I tell you today, church, that your purpose is found in the promise, and that promise is a man named Jesus Christ. Your purpose is found in the promise. You see, we can have hope because our purpose is found in the promise. Purpose is what really keeps our leaves evergreen. Purpose is the water to our dry souls. Purpose is what drives us no matter what the odds are. Purpose is the difference between casual and intentional. Purpose is the difference between right and wrong. Purpose is the difference between so many things. You see, depression cannot compete with purpose. Sickness cannot compete with purpose. Can I tell you that the enemy cannot compete with divinely appointed purpose? Because God is a God of purpose. We can have hope because of the promise of purpose in our lives. Man, this is some good stuff. Your purpose is in the promise. Your purpose is in the promise. Many of you guys know of this man named Michael Phelps, and many of you guys have possibly heard this story of this guy named Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps he is one of the most decorated Olympians of all time, if not the most decorated Olympian of all time, if I'm correct. He's a swimmer, and he just retired this past Olympic season, and Michael Phelps, on the outside, to us, would probably seem like he pretty much has it all together. Michael Phelps seemed like he knew what he was doing. He was the most famous athlete, I would say, pretty much on the face of the earth. He won everything. It wasn't even a competition for him anymore. One day in an interview, Michael Phelps confessed that he had actually almost killed himself multiple times. Michael Phelps, the greatest Olympian of all time, the greatest swimmer of all time, was facing a crisis of purpose. The best athlete that the Olympics had ever seen was facing a crisis of purpose. One thing changed in his life. He encountered a friend one day, and that friend actually gave him a copy of this book called Purpose-Driven Life. Purpose-Driven Life is actually one of I think it's the second most best-selling nonfiction book besides the Bible. That says to me that purpose is really the answer to the problems in our life. Michael Phelps had a problem with purpose. That shows everyone in here today that me and you can have a problem with purpose. See, our true purpose is to live a life with Christ. That is our ultimate purpose, is to live a life with Christ. Your purpose is found through the process. Your purpose is found through the process. Every person in the Bible and every great person that you will probably ever meet, if you talk to anybody, I can assure you that there was a process that they had to go through before they fully realized their purpose. It happens in the Bible. I'm sure it happened with Michael Phelps. There was a process he had to go through. He didn't just hop in the pool one day and beat everybody. There's a process that has to happen. So I got 3 ways today to tell that you're in the process. How to tell you are in the process. How to tell you are in the process. The first one is work. This is basically that you seem to be working harder than everybody else around you. You seem to be working harder than everyone else around you. Can I tell you that you're in the process? You're in the process and you're on your way to realizing your purpose. There's a guy named Noah in the Bible, and if there's someone who knows about process, it's none other than Noah. Noah was an Old Testament person, and he was in the book of Genesis, and Noah was asked by God to create this huge boat called an ark. And I'm talking massive. And the goal of God asking him to do this is that humanity had become so wicked that God was like, hey, I need you to build this boat. I'm going to put your family on it because you're the only righteous ones left. These guys they're wicked. Noah, for the next 120 years, spent his life building this huge ark. That's a process. I can imagine Noah, think about it. They didn't have like a saw, like an electric saw. My man had some stone and some branches, Build a boat with some stone and branches. It's a process. 120 years of the process. Noah seemed to be working harder than everyone else around him. And what's difficult with Noah is that no one else saw Noah's purpose. They didn't understand Noah's purpose. Noah did understand his purpose, though, and because of his understanding of the purpose, was able to walk through the process, no matter how hard it was. 120 years of the process. Thank God we don't have to go through that. Noah did it for us. It's fine. We don't have to do it anymore. You see, but that process led to Noah's ultimate purpose, which was to rescue the human race from the face of the earth. Without the process Noah went through, we wouldn't be here today. The process is, your purpose is found in the process. The process leads to your purpose. The second one is wait. Wait. We have work and then we have wait. You see where you're supposed to be, but you're not there yet. You know where you're supposed to be. You know where your purpose will have you at the end, but you're not there yet. I'm preaching to myself here for all of these. We're all in the process in some way. The story that comes to mind for me here is this guy in the Bible named David. David. He's found in 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 13. David was a shepherd boy for his father. He was actually the 8th son of the family, so he had 7 older brothers in front of him. I can't even imagine that. I have 2 younger sisters. I couldn't even imagine having 8 or 7 older brothers. And this guy named Samuel, this prophet Samuel, was asked by God to go find the new king of Israel. And so Samuel goes, and he knows that he's supposed to go to the house of Jesse, and he knows he's supposed to do something there, and the king is supposed to be there or something. And Samuel goes, and he's looking at each of the 7 sons, and he's like, no, this one isn't the king, and no, this one isn't really the king. And finally, he goes, hey, Jesse, there's no, like, you got any more sons, man? And Jesse goes, I got a 8th son he's out in the fields tending sheep. I can bring him in, but nothing's really gonna happen with that guy. That's David. David comes in, probably smelling a little bit like sheep. Samuel goes, bam, that's my guy. That's the one God's anointed. At that moment, Samuel anointed the head of David. That's great and all. David didn't step into kingship until 15 years later. There's a process from shepherd to king. There's a process that you have to go through. David was anointed for the kingship 15 years before he actually stepped into that. He saw where he was supposed to be, but he just had to wait a little bit through the process. Through the process, David really found out what it meant to lead. He found out a lot of stuff through that. We cannot neglect the process in our lives. We see where we're supposed to be, we're just not there yet. The third one I want to talk to you about is prepare. Prepare. The process, we have work, we have wait, we have prepare. Sorry, I couldn't find something that started with a W. Work, wait, and prepare. You seem to be in a season of preparation. You may know what your purpose is, you may not know what your purpose is, but you feel like you're in the process because you're in a season of preparation. You're in a season of preparation. The person that comes to mind with this is this guy named Joseph. This guy named Joseph. Joseph has a simply amazing story. Joseph was another last son. I believe he was the 12th son, somewhere around there, if I remember correctly. And Joseph actually began to have dreams when he was living with his family about how they were all going to bow down to him. Probably not the dreams you want to share with your brothers. And actually got him in a lot of trouble. Joseph was, after sharing these dreams with his brothers got so mad at him, and they threw him into a pit. You see, what happens is not everyone will understand your purpose in life, especially when it begins to infringe upon theirs. Joseph knew what his purpose was, and he began to go through his process. From this pit, his brothers were actually going to kill him and blame it on some wild animal. And one brother, it's not even like it's a great brother, he's like, let's just sell him into slavery, get some money off of him. So Joseph is sold into slavery, and he begins to work in this guy named Potiphar's house. And is actually in the country of Egypt at the time. And Potiphar was a wealthy landlord in the country of Egypt, and Egypt was the most successful country in the world. It was the superpower of the ancient world, and Joseph finds himself inside of this household working for this guy named Potiphar. Joseph understood what his purpose was and actually raised the household of Potiphar into one of the wealthiest households in the entire nation. Talk about turning your circumstances into some amazing stuff. But when you know your purpose, you can do that. Joseph, I'm sure, he's like, man, I got this good thing going now. I mean, where can I go from here? I can only go up from here. And you got to be careful, or you got to be aware that when you start praying prayers like, God, put me through the process, you'll get those answered. I know that sometimes I'll pray prayers and I don't want them answered, like I know sometimes it's like, God, I'll pray for some patience, God. But you don't want to get tested in patience. Because he'll give it to you. But Joseph is finding himself I don't even know how I got there. Joseph is finding himself inside of this landlord's house, and he's working, and he's diligently working, and he's just multiplying, and there's abundance everywhere. All of a sudden, Joseph looks across the hall. I'm reenacting, this is the Maxwell version. He looks across the hall, and Potiphar's wife looks at him and is like, that's a man right there. But Joseph knew what his purpose was, and that wasn't his purpose. When you know your purpose, it's easier to make decisions. And Joseph is in this situation where the wife of the household that he works for wants to engage in some bad stuff with him. Let's put it that way. She wants to do whatever. I'm digging my pit deeper. And Joseph finds himself in a really not good situation and ends up getting thrown into prison, not because he made a wrong decision, but because she got mad at him that he didn't. But he knew his purpose, and his purpose kind of infringed upon hers. And so what she did was she had him thrown in prison because of her authority and because of her husband. And he got thrown into this prison. He's at the lowest of the lows. I mean, Joseph's gone through life. He's in this prison at the time, and he doesn't really know what to do next. And all of a sudden, Joseph does what he does best, is he begins to understand that he's in the process, and he begins to work, and he begins to build himself up. His reputation is once more built. His livelihood is one more built. And at one point, Joseph actually is running the whole prison as a prisoner. He has every single key to all the cells. He's managing everything as a prisoner. It just shows his stewardship. The amazing thing about Joseph is that he understood he was in the process. He understood he was in a season of preparation. But the story doesn't end up, it doesn't just cut at the prison. Joseph encounters two men in the prison while he's there and actually interprets both of their dreams correctly. And Joseph at this moment is suddenly thrown onto the platform in front of the Pharaoh. And this Pharaoh says, I need you to interpret my dream. Joseph interprets it correctly. And all of a sudden, out of the prison, and he's suddenly in the palace. He understood that the process led to his purpose. He was the second most powerful man in all of Egypt, and the most powerful country in the world, second only to Pharaoh. All because he understood the process. He understood the process. From the pit to the prison to the palace, there's a process. From the pit to the prison to the palace, there is a process. Because this Joseph over here, dreaming Joseph, could never have done what prison Joseph had done. It took the process in the middle. You see, Joseph had learned how to interpret dreams along the process. If he never had gone through the process, he would have never been able to correctly interpret Pharaoh's dream when the time come. He would have never been escalated to the palace if it wasn't for the process. It would have never happened. From the pit to the prison to the palace, Joseph never let what was in front of him limit his vision. Looking around in the pit, his vision was never limited. Looking around in the prison, his vision was never limited. Only when he got to the palace was he able to look out and fully realize his vision and his purpose in life. But it took a process. It took a process. You see, it all starts with hope. Bringing it full circle here. It all starts with hope. It takes some type of hope to get from this spot in the pit to the palace. That's a whole nother level of hope. One that me and you and I can enter into today because of Jesus. Jesus had hope in us. It's our turn to have hope in him today. You see, Jesus is the hope of the world. He's called that, the hope of the world. We talked about the garden earlier. Jesus is our hope. I have this passage I want to read to you today. It's in Isaiah, and it is chapter 42, verses 1 to 4. And it says this, and keep in mind, this is hundreds of years before Jesus ever even stepped foot in Israel. Hundreds of years. It says this, take a good look at my servant, talking about Jesus. Take a good look at my servant. I'm backing him to the hilt. He's the one I choose. And I couldn't be more pleased with him. I've bathed him with my spirit, my life. He'll set everything right among the nations. He won't call attention to what he does with loud speeches or gaudy parades. He won't brush aside the bruised and the hurt, and he won't disregard the small and insignificant. But he'll steadily and firmly set things right. He won't tire out and he won't quit. He won't be stopped until he's finished his work to set things right on earth. Far-flung ocean islands wait expectantly for his teachings. Other translations say that far nations hope. Far nations hope. Jesus was the promised one that Isaiah was talking about here. It says he will not disregard the small and insignificant. He will not disregard the small and insignificant. You know, I know sometimes I can feel that way when I am up against the circumstances of life. Maybe I feel like I'm in the pit and the people that I'm closest to threw me in there. Maybe I feel like I'm in the prison and the circumstances were completely out of my control, but I still ended up there. Can I tell you today that Jesus can be that hope? Jesus can be the vision restorer to the palace. He actually invites us to join him in the palace. The promised one of God came with purpose, and he can be our hope if we allow him to be. From garden to now, the hope of the world is offering you and I an opportunity to join him in a life evergreen. Let's go ahead and bow our heads, and we're going to close our eyes. And I think this is really the most important part of the service here. And why I say that is because Jesus is the promised one. He is the promise that allows us to go through the process and ultimately gives us our purpose. Jesus is our purpose, and it starts with hope. Maybe you feel small and insignificant right now. I urge you, take refuge in Jesus. Have hope in Jesus. He'll set everything right among the nations. He'll set everything right in your heart. Broken, shattered hearts, broken lives, broken circumstances, don't worry, he'll set it right. All it requires is our hope in him. If you've never made a decision to put your hope in Jesus, you can do that today. I made my decision years ago, and I can tell you that my life is not the same. Anyone that's truly put Jesus as their hope in life, talk to them. Talk to them. There's purpose there. I'm going to count to 3 here in a second, and if you've never accepted Jesus Christ into your life, you can do that on the count of 3. Romans 10:9 says that all you have to do is confess him with your mouth and believe it in your heart. That's all it takes. And Jesus then can become the hope that restores the nations, restores this nation, restores you, restores me. 1, 2, 3. If you want to put Jesus Christ as the hope in your life, go ahead and raise your hand right now. If you say, man, my life is messed up, I need some hope in my life in this holiday season. I thought these were supposed to be happy times. Need some hope in your life. Go ahead and raise your hand right now if you want to make a decision to accept Jesus into your life. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and pray. God, we just love you so much. We can't live our lives without you, Jesus. Thank you for giving us hope in every single day, God. We never have to live our lives hopeless, Jesus. Because of you, because of your Son, we can live our lives fully evergreen. I accept you into my heart, Jesus. And I promise to live my life forever with you, a life evergreen. Amen.